Hello, and thank you for stopping by. I'm your host, Jerry Royce, and welcome to Positive Power 21 Network, where you get your positive on. This is a worldwide podcast for growth, wealth, and success. Thank you.
Positive Power 21.org, Internet Radio.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Positive Power 21.org. When it's all positive, it's all power. Hi, everybody. I'm Jerry Royce, and tonight on the show we have Levine Oliver Publishing Company, and the owner is Agnes B. Levine. And before we bring on the show, we're going to have to introduce some of our sponsors for tonight's show, and that'll be Rhonda M. Lawson. We pushing that book, Twilight. Check it out. You can go to our website, click on the Amazon icon. The book is $11.77 on the site. Again, it's $11.77. It's Twilight, urban book. Get your book, get your copy now while it's hot. Very, very inspirational book. There's a lot going on in there that we need to share with our young ladies because it's crazy out there, especially the ones going to college for the first time. They leaving home. That's definitely a book you want to read and share with your daughter that's going off to college and even high school in some cases. And also, we're going to have my man Vincent Alexandra on the show in another week. He has a brand new book out there, too, called Black Secret. So those tonight's sponsors for this show. And I can't wait to get my man Vincent Alexandra on Positive Power 21 because he's doing it out there. And this guy he's been writing for a very long time. It'd be exciting to have him on the show and find out what else he's up to these days. All right, everybody. Don't forget the other sponsors we have on our show. You guys know who they are. Check us out. Visit their website, see if there's anything that'll work for you. Okay? And we appreciate you joining us today. All right, Miss Agnes Levine. She's the founder and president of Levine Oliver Publishing Company. She called it LOP for short. And it's been her childhood dream and goal to own a small publishing business. So we're not going to use the word small. Somebody told me don't never put that in your vocabulary. So we're going to stay with just you want to have your own publishing company. And welcome to the show, Agnes. How you doing tonight?
Thank you. I am doing fine. Thank you very much. How are you this evening?
I'm doing wonderful. So happy to have you on the show. I know we go way, way back.
Yes,
way back. And it's just so good to hear your voice and see you doing some exciting things out there. I see you just released your second book titled I Saw You in His Eyes. And before we get into that book, we want the audience to know a little bit about you. Tell us how you started your publishing company and what were you doing before then and, to make you decide to go into publishing.
Well, that's a long story. I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. I've been writing for pretty much most of my life. I got involved with advocacy, and that involved a lot of writing as well. So I thought that I would share with the community that I was networking with information about special needs and disabilities. And it kind of blossomed from that. Because I love to read, I started Swaggy's Voice. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes, and I was began reviewing books and interviewing authors. So they would have an opportunity to share the good, positive things they were doing in the community through their work. The Swaggy's Voice interviewed artists as well, not just writers. Mm-hmm. And so it spawned from that. I decided to take it out of just a hobby stage, if you will, and decided to turn it into my dream, my publishing company. And so wow. I got my books written and self-published them. And I am currently still advocating and still writing, but I've taken on a new covering, if you will, or a new area of advocacy, and that's raising awareness about mental illness.
Yes, I see.
It's growing from that vein. I'm focusing more on education and helping people to become aware of some of the issues that challenge us in the educational arena. So that's what I'm currently doing now, and I wanted my writing to be educational, informative, and to go into some of the dark areas that hold the community behind.
Yes, and mental illness is a real big problem. We're hearing a lot about, shooting on our military bases, these kids going into these schools, this random shooting. I don't even think they even figure out what the deal was with the kid in the Columbia Mall in Columbia, Maryland. So mental illness has to be on the forefront of some problems.
Right.
They need to address.
A lot of the crimes that occur aren't exactly because of mental illness, but, there's a lot of stigma and stereotypes still out there that prevent persons from seeking the help that they need in order to go into mental illness recovery.
Yes,
and the main character of the book, I Saw You in His Eyes, Reenie, is a victim of domestic violence, and she has to overcome the mental illness that results from being a victim of domestic violence.
Okay. So I was going to say, so you ready to talk about your book now? So what's the main character's name again?
The main character's name is Reenie.
Reenie, okay.
Now a minute.
Reenie. Say that again, Agnes. I think you broke up a little bit.
I mean to cut you off. We could hang out a minute if you weren't ready to talk about the book.
No. I think we're ready. What happened? I lost you a little bit, but I was saying Reenie. I thought I saw her name when I was looking at your site, and I mean we talking about mental health, so we can move right into the book. That'd be great. And then we'll pull a little bit more out. Why you decided to write that book. That's the main thing I wanted to ask you before you you finish talking about yourself. Is was mental health is the awareness piece that you're interested in advocating for now, and I was going to ask you what made you decide to get involved with that.
Well, if you recall, I had a son with severe and multiple disabilities, and as a result of the many challenges that I faced raising him and advocating for him, I acquired and developed a mental illness myself. And so lost my son 4 years ago. I just felt it strong in my spirit that the Lord prepared me to take those skill sets that I learned advocating for him and shift it from developmental disabilities to mental illness.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yes. I don't know if you remember Corey. He used to come to church. But, yes, he passed in 2010, and that was right around the shift that I was undergoing from developmental disability advocacy to mental illness recovery advocacy and awareness about that.
All right. So you said you actually started experiencing some form of mental health problems yourself?
Yes, I suffered a nervous breakdown in 1993. I was able to manage it, driven by, needing to take care of my children. But it's been, it was a challenge until I entered into mental illness recovery. And so struggling with depression as a result of the mental illness and educating myself because it's something that just is not discussed in the typical family unless you hear something bad happens on the news or people are laughing and making fun of you during the height of the sickness period. So it was a lot of, it was a journey that I had to take, and part of that journey included learning as much as I could about mental illnesses and allowing myself to be used to make a positive difference in how our families and communities view persons with with a mental illness.
That's right. Because, it's something that you mentioned this because this is one of the subject matters that you don't hear a lot about in families. For years, the black family never really addressed it. We never seek treatment from professional counselors or psychiatrists or psychologists or whatever and got on medicine. You always hear mostly about our white counterparts sitting on the couch or the bench and being prescribed medication, but you never heard our people going through that.
Right. And
so you think this is...
It's almost expected that once you are diagnosed with a mental illness, you're expected to do nothing but be, quote, unquote, crazy all of your life. And that is just so not true, that people can recover from a mental illness the same way persons do from diabetes or alcohol or drug use and go on to a productive life.
All right. So would you say you're 100% cured?
There is no cure. There's only treatment. So I have been in recovery for 5 years now, and I expect to stay in recovery because I stay in treatment.
Okay. So this is something that's you're going to be doing for the rest of your life?
For the rest of my life. When you have a mental illness, it is a brain disorder, a chemical imbalance. There is no operating on the brain to fix it or whatever. So you take medication, which is part of the treatment therapy, to stay mentally well. And then you make adjustments in your lifestyle, in your diet. I exercise more. I avoid drama as much as possible. And I just readjusted the way I lived. And one of the things that came to an end, unfortunately, was the loss of my son, because that kept a lot of stressors in my life, fighting for services and things of that nature. So that all came, and then, like I said, the training that I received in advocacy and the experiences that I had in advocacy, I just made the transition from developmental disability population to the mental illness population. Yes.
Now, let me ask you this, Agnes. Now, is this something that can be brought on from a extreme amount of stress or imbalance? Like now the big talk in federal government is work-life balance. They want. This is coming from the top person. This is a woman that's running the agency. She's really pushing down work-life balance to her managers, and they're expecting her managers to drop it down on their people. They want you to have fun, enjoy your family. You take off when you want to. There's no pressure coming back. A lot of times you take off, and the manager give you grief. They don't want that no more. They want you to enjoy your time off. If you got to take care of some business, put something fun and relaxing in there. Now, that's where I'm going. Is you think that could be a cause of some people after they have a nervous breakdown from so much stress that now they need to be in some form of rehab?
I will say that mental illness affects everybody, especially in the workplace. Now, that can include if 1 in 4 persons are affected by a mental illness, that means that persons are taking that into the workplace. Yes, stresses from the workplace can contribute to developing a mental illness, and I think that what businesses are doing now is taking it a little more serious and not allowing my dog, pardon her.
Yeah, I can hear her.
Not allowing a lot of the traditions of pretending it does not exist and it doesn't affect work productivity to go unnoticed. I have to put my own plug in and say that the Affordable Care Act certainly has paved the way for businesses to look at it more as a treatable condition for the whole workforce. to make changes. Because if you have people constantly out of work, then you're losing productivity in the workplace, and that costs money. And so if they are viewing it more seriously and stop allowing the penalties, people get embarrassed and ashamed, and they don't want the repercussions, and so they don't get treatment. But now we have mental health parity with the healthcare reform, and so persons can get treatment with the early symptoms of depression, for example. Once you know and understand what those symptoms are, then you know that if you're depressed and can't get off that sofa for 2 weeks or can't get out of bed for 2 weeks, and you're constantly crying and hurting, there's something wrong mentally. And it's nothing to be about. It's something that that just signals it's time to go to the doctor. And we also, culture, don't like to take medicine. So medications are affordable now with Obamacare. So we can afford to take medicine, and it doesn't mean that you would have to take medications the rest of your life. It just means that you need help to get through. The same way if you're diabetic, you may start out needing insulin, and then as you stabilize, you may only have to take pills, to monitor your sugar level or high blood pressure. It's the same thing with a mental illness, and it usually will start with early symptoms that we just don't know.
That's right. Now, what kind of exercise and diet do they recommend?
I try to walk. That was the key thing that was emphasized in the early days. I needed to walk. And when I first was diagnosed, I was on 11 medications, and the combination of medications gave me horrible dry mouth. So I used to drink like 3 or 4 2-liter bottles of soda a day. Needless to say, I blew up, like crazy. So I needed to walk to get that weight off and switch from soda to water. Now I love water, a lot of water. And I still love to walk. I began swimming. During the time at MLK, I was on a very vigorous swimming routine and walking. And so that's, and I eat baked foods. I try not to, I've almost given up red meat entirely. So just try to take care of yourself in a healthy way, because one illness, one health issue leads to more complicated issues down the road.
That's right. That's true.
Especially
when... Because I was going to say, especially when you get a little older, you start getting over 35, you're not as active because, you're more prone to injury. So we kind of get away from some of our more physical sports, especially guys. I mean, I played basketball all the way up to, I think, hard into my 40s. I was playing from like age 29, and I just couldn't stop it. I love that sport. And, of course, I gave up baseball to concentrate on my boys, because baseball requires you to be out there a little bit more than, say, basketball. You pick 1 or 2 nights a week to play, and you're doing really well. So I can see how the walking can really help, because it's helping with muscle tone, cardio, and and it's a pace that you're keeping, and and at the same time you're not stressing your joints as much as running.
Right.
Good. Now, doctors are talking now that they're finding that vegetarians experience other health-related issues. One, they were talking about cardio, heart problems, more prone to that than people who eat red and white meat. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that I don't care to have a lot of red meat the way I used to. I am more into baking poultry and seafood and eating green leafy vegetables as much as possible that I can afford. Are expensive. And so, we need the heart, we need the brain. And so, it comes down to priority. If you like living, let's say, above ground, then you start making those life changes to stay here a little longer.
That's right, because I know berries are high on the list, but they are so expensive. They know it. That's why they put those big, hefty price tags on. That's why I eat a lot of bananas, and they're getting to be a little pricey now, too, because I know I like those because they help, because I like drinking coffee in the morning. They help control the acid level, so I like to eat bananas. So they know what they're doing out there, the man. They know the good things is going to be pricey,
Right.
Almonds, especially almonds,
Yes, it's important that I used to eat my handful of almonds every day. I've kind of fallen off the wagon with that. But I certainly like the option of swapping. Like if I gave up red meat, I switched to eating more turkey, like ground turkey and burgers, things of that sort. I gave up Lay's potato chips, and I eat more Honey Nut Cheerios for the heart.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, and I know our family, we love some chips. I switched my chips up. I got rid of them. Maybe throw maybe 2 or 3 in there because the kids still eat them. But I like pretzels. And we do. My wife, we'll try to buy one bag of almonds. I think one bag of almonds almost costs you $8 now.
Oh, it's expensive.
I know. But like you said, you're down to a handful, so it's better than nothing. All right. Well, that's good to hear.
Getting the heart healthy, it's all you need. Making instead of buying the fat oil to fix your food, and I do the olive oil, and I usually will, buy the spray. Just little changes, and once you get adjusted and happy, and you add something else to it, and instead of trying to run out tomorrow and buy all this stuff, that never worked for me.
Yeah.
To South Carolina for a couple of years. I don't know if you remember that, but I got into the fish oils when I was down there.
Yeah.
And increasing eating seafood, salmon, and mostly salmon.
Yeah, salmon is good. Expensive too, but the omegas 3, 6, and I think 9s help out a lot too out here.
Yeah.
So that's real big. Yeah, real big breakthrough in omegas.
So it's easy to do to make that transition slowly than to I'm recalling when my dad came down with sugar diabetes, and it was a sudden diet change, and fought it all along the way, but he had to do what he had to do. So when we learn from living through those types of experiences, that you just do a little bit now and avoid that last minute Christmas rush, so to speak.
That's right. Yep. Like I said, when you get over I guess 45, you have to really start being real health conscious. You got to approach life a little differently when you were younger. You have to spend more time with your doctors, listen to them. And, of course, I always felt that, doctors don't make money off of healthy people. It's a whole bunch of wellness. How much wellness can they do to bring you in the office, see how well you're doing? Well, once or twice a year. I see the dentists, they have stepped things up a little bit, and they finding ways to get you in that chair, because people are suffering from gum disease, and most of that's because we don't floss every day, or we drinking too many sugary drinks, and you should be. And one of the things I heard a lot of people didn't know, I heard after you eat a meal, like if you're at work, you don't really necessarily have to gargle with Listerine. You can just take warm water, maybe a little salt or something in it, swoosh it around, and get all the particles out of your gums, and that should be enough to, till it's time to brush with it, when you close out your night.
Right. Apple vinegar does well, apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, I love that.
I
love that.
And dentistry work is very expensive. I'm still got that on my things to do list myself.
Yeah. I'm in that chair. I had to get a root canal done, and because they start talking about bone loss, and so when you start hearing things like that, and I think it's always been out there. I think because our parents, they didn't have access to dentistry, dental care like we have, and they lost their teeth, and they had to end up buying dentures. And a lot of folks in their 70s and 80s do not have a mouthful of teeth, if you notice. So now they have the doctors are really good about really talking to you about treatment. So I guess it's better to go visit the doctor twice or 3 times a year for an exam than to have to be sitting in there getting bridge work done and root canals and tooth pull, because you weren't in the chair for your wellness visits.
Right, and I believe that root canals, start the whole process of needing those dentures a whole lot sooner. So if you don't have to have a root canal, and I think most dentists today don't really recommend that you do, because it causes the teeth to decay more rapidly.
Yeah, and that's why I end up just getting mine pretty much like the one. I think 2 I had to have like really shaved down. They got rid of all the, the decay, and then I just got a crown, and just live that way. It's better than getting dentures and stuff. But anyway, we're ready to move into your book. We're ready to talk about Reenie. What happened to Reenie out there? What was going on with your main character?
Reenie starts out, the story opens up, she's in college, starts out in college. She gets a promotion. She's a teacher. She teaches at a community college. And she reflects back on her college roommate, who unfortunately didn't make the grades to graduate and commit suicide.
Ooh.
And Reenie discovers that her friend has committed suicide. And it's a heart-wrenching experience. And then she, as the story moves along, she gets married, and the domestic violence starts gradually.
Oh, wow. So now, early when she found out that she lost her best friend, now was she starting to suffer from like depression right then?
That is the beginning of it. She doesn't get any type of therapy from grieving, and that happens a lot as well. We grieve and, we keep it moving because it's what we're trying to do. And not everybody needs to get therapy when they lose somebody. But for those people, for those persons who are having a hard time grieving, then they need therapy and some type of support.
Yeah.
But Reenie continues on her journey after losing her friend. She delves herself into schoolwork and teaching and moving it along. And like I said, she meets her husband, and they get married, and then the domestic violence starts. He is also a womanizer, so he has extramarital affairs, and she finally gets tired of that, and she leaves him, and she goes back to her parents. And begins to rebuild her life with the support of her parents and her pastor, who helped her make that last decision that enough is enough, and it is not God's will for her to be a victim of domestic violence and to continue to put up with the adulterous affairs. And so she rebuilt her life. Unfortunately, the husband's got that control thing going on, and he also has his bag of issues that he's never received any type of counseling for as well. He in the story it's revealed that he was abandoned by his mother and left in an abandoned house with no electricity, etc. And his grandmother takes custody of him after seeing him all over the news when the social services agency comes in and rescues him. So he has a deep-rooted issues that come out that he really doesn't like women is what it.
Man, you telling all the twists and turns. You giving out all the good stuff. And I was going to just ask you, was he a professional man? You know, because a lot of our women see a guy that's suited up, you know, tie, suit, dress, shoes, looking good. They think he got it all together. Now, was he one of those, suited up dudes?
No, he wasn't a suited up dude. He is just, they met, they were opposites who attracted each other. He would be more in your construction type of industry, but not as you describe, a suited up person. Okay. So, and he covers his pain with he medicates his pain with alcohol, and that is another issue, you know, that we continually face in our communities and families, and you know, so so that's what's going on with Reenie and her husband. She leaves him and she starts to rebuild her life, and he comes and demands that she return home with him after they've been separated for a while.
Wow.
And
wow.
Yeah, she doesn't.
That's never a good thing. Now, where did you get the title, I Saw You in His Eyes?
It came to me. It came to me. I'll just say that.
Just like that.
The title came long before the story came. That I knew that there was going to be a writing project with that title, and you know,
I Saw You in His Eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, let it manifest that way. So,
and that book is available in ebook.
Is available on Amazon and the Amazon Kindle store, and it's $9.99. And if you don't have Kindle, you can still download the book. So that should not be apparent for purchasing the book. I think that it's a really good story, because what happens, we hear of certain situations of domestic violence, whether it be on the news or in our family, but we don't really go into the mind of what's going on with the person. We expect them to keep getting it up and, to move on. And so we see that she definitely needs, her mother and father there and her pastor there. And it's her mother who makes the decision that she needs therapy after the last violent attack by her husband. He shoots her. And survives the shooting, but she has to now take the walk to go into the soul and get all the hurt and pain out of there. And we discover that once she goes into her healing from the shooting incident, that she is still grieving the loss of her college girlfriend. So that was, and I intentionally wanted to point out, because it just indicates how we don't move from grieving. We just pick up and start covering that hurt and pain and sorrow.
That's
and
right.
Sooner or later it's going to surface.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, I was going to ask you now, a book like this. Now, this is a really, really dark book. Now, for me, if I was going through something like this now, would you recommend this for a book for somebody who's actually experiencing it and it's kind of going to help them? I mean, would you think it'll help them become more cognizant of what's going on with them and they need help? It's almost like you're reading this book and you're reading about yourself.
And I absolutely would recommend it, because there are details in there that encourage persons to break from that generational curse of denying they have and to seek therapy. And the dialogue between Reenie's mother and her at the doctor's one day is one of the favorite things I remember, when her mother asks her how many more trips to the emergency room. are you going to have to make? And that's because Reenie is suffering from anxiety attacks, but
Whoa.
she's not doing anything about it. She's just accepting it. And so, Mom says Reenie is telling the doctor she'll be fine, and Mom says, how many more trips to the ER will we have to make? And that is profound because it just indicates how we don't get to the source of the problem, so we stay stuck. But once Reenie starts her therapy, which Mom took control of and got her in there, the doors begin to open. The healing begins to happen. People say you lose. When you're in darkness, I'm referring to deep depression, you don't, and you can't find that light. So therapy introduces her to the light, and then she can begin to walk forward.
And another thing too, that this book would be really powerful would be for a person who's in a situation like a mom who, you may have somebody that they see this happening, but they're not doing anything about it until it's too late. And this book could kind of raise awareness to them to say, hey, you know what? A little light is going on. I need to do something about that. I need to get some help for my child or for my niece or whoever. Even men could be abused in a way that's Reenie being abused and suffering. So I would say that this would be a good book for somebody who's just sitting back, just watching everything unfold until it's too late.
Right. And I took scenes from my life, and I took scenes from the family, the friends, the community, and kind of weave them together so that it would be a very realistic depiction of what goes on with a person who's from a mental illness. Even down to she doesn't want to return to church, because she doesn't want to face the gossip and stuff about the whole domestic incident, which was in the news. He's got to overcome all those different hurdles that are small to, a person who is well and moving through life with their own trials and tribulations. But it's monumental to Reenie because she's, of course, the person who has to experience it and endure it and overcome it. And she gets happy at church, walking down and testifying on, at the altar.
Amen. And sometimes it takes, somebody to get touched, in a church service. They may just find themselves, they can't take no more. They say, I'm just going to go to church. Maybe somebody invited them, or they just was driving by and they saw a retreat going on. You always hear those kind of stories all the time. And then finally, when, they give themselves to the Lord, and then they start doing things with themselves and seeking help at the same time. It kind of, like you said, it helps with the recovery process, getting help, meeting new people. Sometimes just meeting new people, can bring joy. Everybody needs joy in their life. And I bet that man of hers didn't bring no joy to her life, and she probably was, had a pretty stressful job. So that's A. Go back home. B. Have to deal with him because he has a pretty difficult job. I can imagine being in construction work, very physical. Sometimes at the while it's a little hard to deal with some of those kind of coming home tired all the time. So I can just imagine that was just just a trap. A bomb just waiting to go off.
Right. Well, in the storyline, Reenie gets promoted, and she's excited, of course, because it. In her mind, is going to bring her and her husband closer to their dream of, purchasing a home and all the little things that, little girls want when they grow up. And she's coming a family with a two-parent structure and a home and, not really very rooted in family values. So, of course, she wants to think. There's not much attention on her husband, Cameron, except for the alcohol and womanizing and the violence that he subjects her to. And then, like I said, it's one part in the story where he expresses his bitterness that he's been holding in against his mother and his grandmother. Because his grandmother has said to him, "You're just like your mother. You're just like your mother." So when he leaves his grandmother as a teenager, he does it in a rude, sarcastic, hurtful way. Because he has always said, "You're just like your mother." So he figured, well, I'm going to leave, just walk out of your life just like my mother just walked out of mine. So that's
a story.
Very hurt and pain, and rather than release it, and how their pain grows and can manifest into a violent structure when it's not checked. And the alcohol really did not help the situation. So
wow, this is something.
It's a little teeny weeny bit of everything in the story, in order to highlight the journey that Reenie had to take to achieve mental illness recovery. And after all of that, he gets arrested and has to go through the whole trial thing for shooting her. And she has to, of course, recover from the wound. And she's now disabled. She has a disability as a result of this shooting incident. And he decides that he's going to commit suicide while he's in prison.
Wow, what a story. I know people can't wait to get their hands on this one. Don't tell us no more. Now, you gave us a lot of twists and turns, boy. Woo. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the other one, because you have another book for sale also, right? You're still moving your collection, right, of, what's that called, Cooling Well Water?
Cooling Well Water. The collection, that book is actually out of print, but I am in the process of having it converted over to ebook format.
Okay, good. Tell us a little bit about this book, because it's talking about pretty much the same thing, mental illness, right?
It definitely is talking about mental illness. It's a collection of work, and it speaks to where I was with my recovery. It was difficult for me to write a book during the time, but I was writing during it. And so it's a collection of work. There is a short story testimony in that book called The Vanilla Room. And that testimony is the actual nervous breakdown that I experienced. It takes the reader inside the crazy room at the hospital, psychiatric unit of the hospital, and inside the room, and what is actually happening to me, to my mind, in the midst of a breakdown.
Now, Agnes, prior to that happening, what exactly were you going through? How much pressure were you going through? I mean, were you going through this alone? I mean, I know you were dealing with your son, your children, because I think you have aging parents, like a lot of us that's in our 40s and 50s. What were you going through right now that kind of came to a point where you just couldn't take no more?
I believe that I know that it was all of the above. I was in a marriage that was going bad, that was bad and going worse. I had to deal with a spouse who had an addiction problem and going through codependency, trying to hide it, trying to, make up for wherever he fell short, and maintain being mother, father to the children. Now, my youngest son, with a disability, demanded an awful lot, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. It was very demanding, raising a child with severe and multiple disabilities. It's constantly on your mind. Every little thing that goes wrong with him, that cause and effect, it's going to affect the whole family. So you're never really, because of his disabilities, you never really rest, you're always poised to either argue for something, fight for something, defend him for something, or figure out something. It's not as easy. Like, for example, during the week of my nervous breakdown, he was in a hospital requiring a trach, and I had to figure out how I was going to get him daycare because I couldn't afford to quit my job.
Mm-hmm.
There was no money already, to really make ends meet. But the constant thing that I remember is who's going to take care of him, because his trach was going to require that he be suctioned frequently throughout the day. The babysitter that he had already informed me when he comes out of the hospital he could not return because she had other children to take care of, so she couldn't, spend that one-on-one attention, keeping his airway open. So that was a constant dilemma. And what I didn't realize, and I was also wrapping up my bachelor's degree in school, so you have all those term papers that are due, blah, 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 working as well. And so I was not sleeping, and I didn't learn until after my nervous breakdown that those days that I was going without sleep were very hurtful to my mind. My chemicals were going out of whack more and more and more because I was lacking sleep. I know that I went at least 3 days without sleeping, and the brain requires to sleep, at least 6 hours a day. And, you don't know. People say, oh, you're strong, oh, how strong you are. And, my father had a very strong work ethic, and we rarely saw him sleeping. He worked at Bethlehem Steel and all those shifts at Bethlehem Steel. So we rarely saw Dad sleeping, and we always saw him doing, working. If he wasn't at work, he was doing stuff around the house. So I prided myself that I did not require sleep because Dad didn't sleep. But Dad told me in a conversation we had before I lost him that he would sleep at Bethlehem Steel in the locker room.
So he got his sleep in.
Yeah, being like you, and you're on the job in the locker room getting your 6 hours in. But anyway, the chemicals that got out of balance, and I was depressed. I had all the symptoms of depression, but I didn't know it. So I was just going through the motions pretty much by the time that I actually crashed. I was, pretty much a robot going through the motions.
I can imagine. And, and you think about, you're not the only person I know that was, dealing with a child that had, either, learning disability or physical disability. I mean, people who are going through this, mental disabilities with their children, with the autism, because the child is getting older and older and still require, still not independent yet. And you're talking about a mom who probably lost her husband because he couldn't come home to that and see his son, a kid that would never play baseball or football with the rest of the boys in the neighborhood. He just can't take it, so he decides to leave. You hear a lot of those stories, and then she's trying to balance a professional job where a lot of these companies require long hours now, for the same pay. And and then you have other kids too you have to give attention to. I can imagine that is really, really tough. And then, like in your case, your husband wasn't helping you at all, but just making things work. He was just another kid that you was dealing with.
Yeah, well, he was when he wasn't actively using, because we were married 19 years, and he was in and out of recovery as well, rehab, and trying to get his clean time. But unfortunately, during that particular time in our life, he was not working on his recovery, and so it just made it awful. But what happens is when you are in a codependent relationship such as that, you do more to compensate for where the other person falls short.
Yeah.
And you aren't aware that you are overcompensating. And that's where I was. It wasn't a matter of trying to, it was me filling two roles, literally, his shoes and mine, to make the ends meet and to be mother, father, and be student, to hurry up and get out so I can get a better job, and, all those things were going
it's tough. Now, for a guy like him, you said for a really long time he was addicted to chemicals. What was he like, when you first met him? I mean, what kind of, was he there when you met him and you said you thought you could help him, or it just happened because he just couldn't deal with, I guess, work-life balance?
He was a typical, we met in high school, we dated. He was typical, not good, not bad. He was him. And he was very committed to family, his kids especially. He was super dad. And it wasn't until we were married 11 years that I discovered he had an addiction problem. And then over the years, through counseling and rehab with him, I learned that, he started out at 4 years old with cough syrup. And it just grew from there. So it's those things that come out after the fact, and like, okay, so what my first resolve was to file for divorce when I heard, when I learned that he had a substance problem, and I had to, really, really, really seek out the Lord and work through that and decide that my mom and dad, they worked through their problems. There was no, I'm packing up and leaving, you get out. It wasn't none of that. They were the Harriet and Ozzie Nelson.
They sure were.
Well, you grow up and you want the same thing. So I decided, we're going to do whatever it takes to keep this marriage together, and he was very willing to do whatever it takes. But, from the 11th year to the 19th year, it just got increasingly worse every time he relapsed, until you realize there's no cure for his sickness, there's no cure for my sickness, and we're both going to die if we stay together.
Yeah, you guys were a match made in heaven, huh?
Somebody had to get out to save it, and you have children. The children actually came to me and said, we're not doing this anymore. We're not going to counseling anymore. We're just not doing this anymore. We're not married to him. You are.
How many kids did you have with him?
I had 3 total, and now I have 2 young adult children. So, and their dad to this day, he's about 7-8 years clean, and they were able to work through their pain and heal. And they have, one of the best, relationships that you can have as far as, father-children are concerned. He was always there, if you will, for my son. I have a son and daughter. Little son, my Corey, of course. I had 2 sons and a daughter. And he was there as much as he could be. But when his sickness was active, you can't depend on him.
Right.
You just fill in his shoes and hope that they hurry up and get well. But like I said, what I will share that I thought my children would never speak to him again because some of the situations we experienced. And it was my son who sent him a one-way airplane ticket and arranged for him to get into a recovery house and literally flew him out to Las Vegas and got to recovery. And he's been clean for 7 years. And they, they just picked right up where they left off. I have to say that I raised my children that they have to honor their mother and father no matter what, because God doesn't give us on, well, if your mom does this, you don't have to, love her and respect her. So they grew up, honor thy father, that he wore their patience out, but they always went back to, we have to honor you,
That's right.
We may
That's right.
give you money, but I'll throw a hamburger out the car window.
Wow, they hung in there though. How old are your kids now?
33 and 30.
Yeah, okay, they're the same age as my son. Okay, the same age as Brandon. Wow, wow. So you have to applaud them. They hung in there. I mean, now them going through what they went through. What would they tell you? I mean, did it make them the people they are today, or and they more cognizant of who they're going out with and getting to really know who the person is? And what have they learned from your relationship?
I think they learned the values that they were supposed to learn. That, like I said, you have to honor your mother and father, because I was sick too. And, until I arrived at recovery, there were behaviors that they were ashamed and embarrassed that I had no control over. I wasn't stealing and doing, those shady things, so to speak. But they didn't understand the whole mental illness thing either. And so the days that I spent where I could not get out of bed and be mother and cook and clean and stuff, they had to pick up the slack. And it really was, when I look back, on it, I just have to give my God the glory, because they can't see any other way where we survived it.
So they had to grow up fast. So they grew up fast.
They had to grow up fast, and they did very well. I'm very proud of my children. Now, my son went into the military route, and so he is a disciplinarian, and he's like my dad. He doesn't take nonsense. He has no patience for nonsense. And my daughter she took the route of, she was distressed and needed a break, needed to get out. It was too much for her. Girls want to do things with their girlfriends. They don't want to be mother, 24/7. So she did her best, and I love her for it. And when she went to live with my parents and then off with my sister to finish high school. And when I reflect back on those years, I'm grateful that I had family there to scoop her up, and because she was experiencing things that I just could not see, during those times. And my son, he took on the role of my father, making sure that the house was run right, and me and my son Corey had everything we needed, and he didn't take any foolishness off his dad during those years where his dad was sick. So, and we always had a strong network. As you know, I was in church, and my son was in college, and my daughter was with my younger sister. So we made it. Some people will probably say by the skin of our teeth, and I say by the grace of God.
That's right. That's right. Now, did your son, was he able to go in as an officer?
I don't know. I think so, because he
finished college, right?
Yes, he joined ROTC in high school, and then he continued on with it in college. He went to West Virginia University, and he did over in Iraq as well. All
right. So our military guys, good, proud of them. Now you're right. You made a good point. You have to give God all the glory for his success, because you figure he was going through a lot of that when he was in high school, and then he had to go off to college not knowing what was going on with his mom, what was going on with his dad, his sister, because you guys were separated, and then he still was able to have a successful career and just be a man, be a strong man.
And I believe most people believe that, I would be institutionalized and my husband come out in recovery much sooner Then when I had my nervous breakdown, the doctors told my family there was just no hope to, institutionalize me and go on with their lives. Let they take the children. And so I was aware of that. I was in the room when that diagnosis was given. And so that was a very strong, powerful driving force for me to call on Jesus to get me out of it.
That's right, to heal. Nothing like Jesus. He make things happen. You just got to call his name. Amen.
No, ain't nothing like Jesus. So it was a process. It was a process. And it was a journey, and we're always on that journey, but it's enough for me to know that I'm going to do all the things that it takes to educate at least one person so that they don't have to experience and their family doesn't have to experience. Once remember the commercial, losing your mind is a terrible thing? And it is. It is truly a terrible thing. It is a frightening experience to
yes, it is.
To lose your mind and don't know a lot of things people had to tell me. I had to learn to write again. I had to learn to talk again. I had to learn to walk again. I had to learn to stand and do those. I knew. I guess I want to say I knew. I never lost how to do those things, but I had to relearn the motor skills again.
Wow.
To bring it back. So like I've said at the beginning when we began talking, I could not really write a book with the first one mechanically. I had a whole book and I have a novel in my head. Time is the factor now.
That's right. That's right. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it.
But it was, and I want to write about parenting, a child with special needs, and that's something that I can't do right now as well. So, there are things, and I learned early on that every time I relapsed in recovery, I would lose more brain cells. And, brain, there's no fixing the brain. There's no operating on the brain. There's no, brain cell transplant sort of. If it's lost. So those things were just encouragement and inspiration to do what was necessary to stay mentally well and not take it for granted.
That's right. We're glad that you came out of it, and everybody just keep in mind, she has a book out there, I Saw You in His Eyes. She's going to bring back Cooling Well Water. You can find Agnes at levine-oliverpublisher.com. And you'll find her icon on our website on the home page if you want to support her in her mission, because she's out there doing public speaking, and all her publishing efforts is to help encourage others who are struggling with the stereotypes, to overcome all these negative labels that destroying their hopes and dreams to live a purposeful and meaningful life. And Agnes, we want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing this information with us.
Opportunity. It really, the pleasure has been all mine. I thank you very much.
You're welcome, and may God, we're going to give him the glory for bringing you out of this, because, listening to your story, I remember hearing people in the same situation. So I haven't even heard from them. I don't even know where they are right now, but it's so good to hear that you have, you're conquering this and you're winning the battle. Yes. You're winning the battle.
Yes, we give God, and I thank him, and I thank you, and I thank our home church, because it all began to come together once I joined Martin Luther King.
That's right. And then I think your writing efforts is always a healing thing to do. I find when people say they write, it helps them, fight off a lot of demons that's brewing up there in their brain. So, keep writing, keep sharing.
To look back and benchmark your growth. When I started again after the nervous breakdown, it was, strictly therapeutic to make sure I could read a word and form and it just took off from there. And I, always will thank God for the restoration. So
That's
I
right.
thank you for on your show.
You're welcome.
And
I think that anybody hearing this show probably can reflect back on some situations that they were going through during tough times, or a relative or friend. But this can help bring more awareness and maybe it can save somebody who's right now is contemplating not helping somebody because they don't know what to do. And after listening to you, I think they know what to do now. And then getting this book, I saw you in his eyes. Listen to what Reenie is going through will make you an advocate and make you want to speak up and help somebody. All right, Agnes, so thank you. So we're going to thank you.
Thank you, and give my regards to your family again. When you mentioned Brandon, I can remember Brandon now, too. So thank you again. Good night. God bless you.
And you too. God bless you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Agnes Levine. You can find her at levine-oliverpublisher.com. Support her. You'll see her book icon on our website at amazon.com. Support ZukiPetGifts.com. You got all of my sponsors on the front. Check out their websites and see how you can benefit from any of their products and services. All right, so this is Jerry Royce and Positive Power 21.org. When it's all positive, it's all power. Good night, everybody. Continue to browse our website. And don't forget to hit us up at www.spreaker.com /user/positive power 21. And follow us. We're trying to get on XM Radio, and the more followers we have, the better chances we have, because we're finding a lot of people are listening to the shows, and obviously it must be positive power, because it's crazy. We just got started out here, and it looks like everybody's really feeling it. My guest is coming on here. If you have anybody who's trying to publish a book and they need some information about it, this is the place to come. All right. So good night, everybody, and thank you so much. I'm Jerry Royce.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Positive Power 21 Network. Team 21 would like to thank you all for tuning in, and please spread the word and tell a friend. This is Jerry Royce at Positive Power 21, where we get our positive on.